everyone, I'm Maki. Christina Mackenzie is a Gundam pilot who appears in the film Gundam 0080 War in the Pocket. The main character in this story is Alfred Izuruha, but he is still just a young boy. Since Chris is a Gundam pilot, she's often treated like the main character when War in the Pocket appears in games. She's a pilot in the Earth's Federation forces by profession. More specifically, her role is classified as a shoe feeder. Today, let's take a closer look at what this role actually involves. I would also like to explore a topic that some fans have paid close attention to. What career path did Chris follow after the story ended? If you would like to support the channel, please consider joining my 99-cent monthly membership. As a thank you, you'll receive a name badge and exclusive comment stamps. Now then, let's begin the analysis. Have you ever thought that the control systems used to pilot mobile suits are too simple? Just 2 levers and 2 pedals. This is the standard control system used to pilot a mobile suit. There are also specialized control systems such as the Psychomute system, which are designed for unique pilots like new types. However, in general, mobile suits operate through systems that are controlled by ordinary human hands and feet. However, the movements of a humanoid machine are extraordinarily complex. Imagine yourself performing the simple action of picking up an object from the ground, for example. What kind of object are you trying to pick up? Is it a metal machine? Or fragile items such as an egg? What is the condition of the ground? Are you standing on soft grass or on hard asphalt-paved ground? What is your height in relation to the distance to the ground? How far should you bend your waist? How should you extend your arm? How should each finger move individually? Very few people probably consider details this specific in the moment. However, even if you are not consciously aware of it, your brain is constantly sending highly detailed instructions via your nerves to control your muscles and joints. The same is true for mobile suits. Mobile suits operating in the Universal Century must also calculate the effects of gravity while moving. It would be impossible to handle such enormous and delicate operations using only 2 levers and 2 pedals. This is where the learning computer comes in. Depending on the source material, it is sometimes referred to as an educational computer. The learning computer observes its surroundings and takes appropriate action. These appropriate actions are selected based on past learning data. Some researchers even argue that the learning computer is the true foundation of mobile suit technology. Technologies such as Minovsky particle engines and beam rifles were originally derived from space and battleship technologies. In terms of what makes mobile suits unique, some believe that the learning computer is the core technology. The true heart of mobile suit technology lies in the ability to control a humanoid machine efficiently. The levers and pedals simply communicate the pilot's intentions to the mobile suit. The mobile suit interprets these intentions and the learning computer then executes the appropriate action. In Gundam F91, Shibukano attempts to grab a beam rifle manually but fails. A mechanic then instructs him to grab the weapon using automotion. This scene clearly demonstrates the importance of the learning computer. Many researchers interpret the relationship between the pilot and the mobile suit as being similar to the relationship between humans and horses throughout history. Humans communicate their intentions to horses using tools such as whips. The horse then interprets these intentions and decides how to run independently. The horse itself makes detailed decisions such as how to handle ground conditions and how far to move its legs. The shoe feeder is responsible for teaching the learning computer proper behavior. If the mobile suit comes under attack from a beam weapon, which action should it take? Should it defend itself with a shield? Or should it evade by moving its body? The appropriate action depends on factors such as the distance to the enemy and the condition of the pilot's counterattack weapons. If the learning computer makes poor decisions, this can directly lead to the pilot's defeat. In episode 5 of Gundam 00, 83 Gundam motion data emerges as a pivotal element. The GP-01 lacked the necessary data to control movement in zero gravity, and the damage was so severe that senior officers deemed it beyond recovery. This concept is also briefly discussed in Gundam Sentinel. In that story, the enemy faction the New Decides was formed from the Earth's Federation Forces Training Corps. One of their duties was to educate the computers used to control mobile suits. During the story, the New Decides launch a rebellion against the Earth's Federation government. In response, the Earth's Federation forces dispatch the Alpha Task Force to suppress them. During a battle on the moon, the Alpha Task Force falls into a trap prepared by the New Decides. The lunar landing program had been created by the training corps. However, the program was suddenly cancelled midway through the operation, forcing the pilots to perform manual landings. Consequently, more than half of the mobile suits failed to land successfully and became ineffective in combat. This is one of the clearest examples of how important it is to learn about computers and their training data. An excellent shoe feeder can teach movements that can improve survival and victory rates in all kinds of situations. Chris's role was to serve as an instructor for the computer-based learning system. Now then, in a previous episode of my program, I briefly mentioned information suggesting that Chris was involved in developing the LX-78 Gundam. This information comes from the official publication monthly mobile machine. However, the book is set in a world in which journalists conduct investigations, and it is presented as based on these investigations. It is therefore important to remember that this information is presented as journalists discovered reports claiming that Chris cooperated in the development of the LX-78. However, if we assume that Chris did indeed help with the development of the LX-78, an interesting connection emerges. In one scene, Ammo Ray defeats Izaku without exploding its engine in order to avoid damaging the space colony. He successfully pulls off the attack. It is an extraordinarily delicate maneuver. Some people point to this scene as proof that Ammo was a new type, given that he was not even a trained soldier. However, Chris successfully performs the same kind of attack in her own story. This scene feels like an homage to episode 1 of the original 0079 series. But what if the information about Chris helping to develop the LX-78 is true? In that case, an interesting possibility emerges. It is possible that Chris's piloting was the original example and that the LX-78's attack was based on the training she provided to the learning computer. Of course, this interpretation depends entirely on the assumption that the information published in Mobile Machine is true. The real answer is unknown. Ultimately, it is up to each viewer to decide. Was this attack successful purely because of Admiral Ray's genius-level piloting skills? Or was it successful because of the indirect cooperation between Chris and Admiral? What do you think? Finally, let's consider what path Chris might have taken after the story ended. At the end of the story, she says that she is going to Earth. The animation provides no further information beyond this point. However, the audio drama Gundam Odyssey later adds a little more information. In that story, she mentions that she might quit her military job. Also, in Gundam 0083, a character who looks extremely similar to Chris appears wearing an Anaheim Electronics uniform. Notably, she is wearing the same uniform as the development staff. Does this mean she chose a career as a development staff member rather than a pilot? Her true identity remains unknown. It is most likely that the staff included the lookalike character as fan service. But could Chris really have left the Earth's Federation forces so easily in the first place? The Alex was one of the Federation's most highly classified mobile suits. Chris had also served as part of the co-development team. One person who may serve as a useful comparison is Kenneth Legg. He participated in the development of the Gundam-type mobile suit Penelope, too. In the novel version, he refers to it as the Penelope that I developed. He was not just an ordinary staff member, but someone in a leading role within the project. Near the end of the story, Kenneth resigns from the Earth's Federation forces. He mentions that the Federation is monitoring me. This is probably connected to the fact that he was involved in developing the Penelope and served as commander of a unit responsible for protecting the Earth's Federation government leaders. Nevertheless, the Federation does appear to have a tendency to keep a close watch on individuals who have access to classified information. Kenneth held a high-ranking command position and achieved significant military successes. Perhaps that is why his resignation was accepted. But what about Chris, who was only a test pilot in name? Would she really have been able to resign smoothly? This is just my speculation, but I wonder if she may have been assigned to the Mobile Suit Tactical Training Corps. This organization's purpose was to refine mobile suit technology. Improving mobile suit programming was also one of its key objectives. It was made up of carefully selected personnel with exceptional technical abilities within the Earth's Federation forces. Having graduated at the top of her class from the military academy and served as the test pilot for the top secret Gundam, Chris is an extremely valuable asset. There is a good chance she will be selected. At the end of the story, Chris departs for Earth. For the Earth's Federation government, Earth itself is a place reserved only for carefully selected elites. If the Federation intended to demote Chris, there would be little reason to summon her to Earth specifically. Later, the Tactical Training Corps rebelled under the name New D-Size. However, I personally doubt that Chris participated in the rebellion as a member of the New D-Size. In the story, those who did not support the rebellion were sent back to Earth. It is speculated that Chris joined the combat training unit and was sent back to Earth before the rebellion began. Of course, this is just my personal interpretation and speculation. What path Chris followed after the story is entirely up to each viewer's imagination. Thank you so much for watching until the very end. I'll see you again in the next episode.